Fast Times at Ridgemont High isn't just the greatest comedy of the 80s, it's a timeless classic. I'm going to outline 5 reasons why. Comedy movies are in a state of crisis, but Fast Times provides the exact blueprint for how to get the genre back on track. The final reason especially proves this, because Fast Times does the exact thing that Hollywood is trying to do, but is failing miserably at. Starting off with reason number 1, imagine yourself as a high schooler again, navigating your day throughout the school day. What do you think of? I think there are universal things that we all experience throughout high school on a day-to-day basis. You know, navigating the hallways, seeing that couple getting too tonguey with their kisses, people getting high before class. Maybe you got high before class. I might have done that once. The way that people would cheat on exams, you know, the water bottle trick, the answers in the glasses, if you're a girl, you know, putting the answers up your thigh, up your skirt, you know, working jobs you hate. I know I hated my first job, or at least I hated my first supervisor at the drugstore that I worked at, but all of these things are captured on screen, really selling the point home of what high school was like. And it doesn't matter if you went to high school in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, aughts, 2010s, or you're a high schooler right now. These are the sorts of moments that everyone experienced. And Fast Times brings them to the big screen in a way that, at least this amount of things, that I can't remember any other movie capturing so well. But as far as reason number 2 on this list, you probably feel like Fast Times was written by an actual high schooler, given how real it feels. And the truth is, it kind of was, but it also kind of wasn't at the same time. And I know you're probably thinking, how does that even make sense? How can you kind of be a high schooler and kind of not? The screenwriter of this movie, Cameron Crowe, actually wrote this based on high school experience. But the catch is that he was not actually high school age. He wrote this based on an undercover experience going in and posing as a high school student. And I have no idea how this was legal, but I guess that's just kind of beside the point. This was really based on real life experiences, and it really immerses you in the high school experience. You know, right off the bat, you know, that weeknight at the mall that the movie starts with, you know, Friday night lights. Everyone remembers the Friday night high school football games. Walking through the hallway and all the different cliques, you know, these things just never change. Just the timeless aspects of high school that Cameron Crowe captured so well. But moving into number 3, what is something about high school that is just forever protected? You know, it doesn't matter if you went to high school in the 1800s, 1900s, 21st century, or even 100 years from now. This is just something that will never change because it is so innately human. And that's the relationships between the characters, particularly the romantic relationships. High school is the first time that virtually everyone discovers some sort of their romantic side and dating for the first time, becoming sexual for the first time, and figuring out how to date, what dating looks like for you, what sex looks like for you for the first time. It's inherently going to be awkward. Through the lens of Stacy, I mean, you know, she starts the movie as a virgin and then she has sex with the guy in his 20s, or he might even have been in his 30s. Kind of weird to think about. But then she gets with Mark Ratner, who is equally inexperienced, and he's finding himself. And something else that I can't ever remember really being explored as authentically as it was on screen is when she gets with Mike Damone. And it's just the idea of someone sleeping with a girl that they knew their best friend had a crush on and was to an extent romantically involved with. You know, I'm thinking through my high school circle, and I can think of 3 examples off the top of my head of this happening. And, you know, high school students are quite sleazy. But just again, another thing that is timeless, that is captured so well with Fast Times. Getting into reason number 4, you know, I have a funny story that relates well to this one. Just last night, I was watching a movie for the first time, and within a matter of seconds, I knew the movie was doomed. No matter what this movie did, because this aspect of the movie was just botched right from the start, I knew the movie had no chance at even being a decent movie. We're talking dialogue. This movie, the characters were forming together sentences, sequences of words that no human would ever say, and the movie was just liked because of this. It really felt like the movie, the dialogue at least, was written by ChatGPT. Fast Times, on the other hand, does the polar opposite. The dialogue feels so real. It almost feels too real. When you're watching Fast Times at Ridgemont High, it just feels like thousands of hours captured of hidden camera footage of a high school year, and an editor went together and cut the best moments together into 90 minutes. Like, it really feels like you're a fly on the wall. And again, it was written based on real life, but, I hear the characters talking. I went to high school in the early to mid 2010s, and this movie was released in the 80s, but I can hear myself speaking this dialogue. I hear my friends. I hear the filler people throughout high school. Like, everything just feels so real about the dialogue, and that really sells this movie. As a filmmaker myself, dialogue is one of the biggest things that I'm working on with my third feature film. I really want to make sure that the dialogue feels as realistic as possible, hopefully as realistic as Fast Times. I've been promoting this for the past 3 months now, but the time is finally running out. By the time we release this video, Pleasure List, my third feature film, which follows a 20s man on the autism spectrum who hires a degenerate aspiring actor to help him with a bucket list of normal life experiences, we will have 3 days left in the campaign. I record these videos a couple of weeks in advance, so at the time of this recording, we've raised about $21,000, so 70% of our budget. As a reminder, we don't get to make the movie unless we reach all $30,000. When the clock hits zero, if we've only raised $29,999, the project is immediately declared a failure, and every single person is refunded their money, so there's no risk in supporting this project. Thank you so much to everyone who has supported the project, and to those of you who have not, this is your final chance to, and when you support it, you will be added to our Discord and Facebook communities, which will only be available to the supporters of the campaign. We're going to take you every step of the way from pre-production through production to through post-production through release. You're not going to want to miss this because this will be unlike any other movie experience of your life. You will be a part of the movie from start to finish, just a very much community building experience. And, you'll be able to connect with the cast and crew throughout these groups. And it's just going to be so much fun. So again, thank you so much for making this movie possible. But getting into the final reason on this list, what I mentioned in the beginning, Fast Times at Ridgemont High does the exact thing that Hollywood has been trying to do for over a decade now. And it's been failure after failure after failure. Hollywood has been just on this tear where they're just going out of their way to try to make every single movie for everyone. They're trying to make sure that every single demographic possible, you name it, is represented on screen. They want to make something that it doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, or anything else, or if you're young or you're old or you're a part of this socioeconomic group, you name it. And what ends up happening is no one ends up liking the movies. They're disposable. They bomb at the box office, and then the studios just kind of throw their arms up and say, what happened? I guess people just don't like going to movies anymore. And it's like, no, this is just the most disposable movie ever. No one sees themselves or their friends or their family or relationships or their experiences on screen because what you're making is just essentially a checklist. That's not a movie. Fast Times goes the opposite direction. It's very much an artistic film that is so genuine. Everyone feels represented on screen because there's nothing that the writer had to respond to try to edit it so that everyone would like it and edit after edit. Instead, it has his soul, and so as a result, the movie has a soul. I see myself in the characters, I see my friends, I see my enemies, I see my acquaintances because it's so real. It's timeless, it's universal. If Hollywood went the route of this style of movie again, it wouldn't just bring back the comedy movie genre, it would bring back a full-on film renaissance. Hollywood really needs to take notes of this movie. You need to check it out again if you haven't watched it in a while and you love Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I'm sure you love the 80s era of comedies as well. So let's keep this conversation going forward with the 5 greatest 80s comedies of all time here